Okay, good morning and welcome to Just Daf It. Daf Yomi Shir. We're learning Kesubos, Daf Dal, number 24. We have an exciting shir for you today. A special 9 days edition of Daf Yomi. It's always much better during the 9 days because you can't eat meat, right? When you eat meat and you drink wine, you fall asleep. So it's extra incentive to stay up for my shir. Of course, if you're listening to my shir, you're probably not going to fall asleep. So therefore, I give a heter to everybody who's listening to my shir, and only my shir. You're allowed to eat meat and drink wine during the 9 days. I'm joking. You're not allowed to. I'm not a rabbi. But let's get started. The Mishnah on Chav Gimel and Beis, towards the bottom, 8 lines up from the bottom. The Mishnah says, "V'chein shnei anoshim." We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about believability and amonus, to say that somebody's a Kohen. Right, someone comes to your shul, he says, "Give me aliyah," right? They have a bidding war for the aliyahs, right? Some shuls, especially in like the 5 towns, like these things in Simchas Torah, they can go for huge sums of money. Maybe in Flatbush also, Midwood. So, obviously you get a discount if you're the Kohen. There's not so many Kohanim around. Not such a great bidding war. So he comes, he wants to bid for Kohen. We don't know who the guy is. Can you believe him and give him Kohen? We'll deal with that today. Start the Mishnah. Each one says, 2 people come to a new city, let's say, and they tell I'm a Kohen. Each one says they're a Kohen. They're not believed about themselves. Even though normally Eid Echad is never going to be Isurim, and presumably saying you're a Kohen isn't Isur Beheter, for some reason they're not believed. I'm going to explain why in Ian with Mansion. However, when they testify for each other, because Eid Echad is never not Atzmo, to matter himself, but he's matter as his friend. Rabbi Yehuda does not agree with this. Even if it's another person testifying on your account, it doesn't help. You need 2 Eidim. Amar Lezer, Emasai. He's qualifying Rabbi Yehuda's statement. We only don't believe 1 Eid when there's people that are protesting and saying, you testify as a Kohen, I disagree with you. If there's no dissension, no one's arguing on it, then you would be allowed to assume he's a Kohen based on the testimony of 1 as long as it's not him himself. What's the difference between Rishon Gamliel and the Tanakama? We'll find out more in the Gemara. They seem to be saying the same thing. The Marsha, the Kohani Lamali. All these Mishnayos, we've had about 5 or 6 Mishnayos in the last 7 or 8 dapim, seemingly saying the same thing: a pesha aser, a pesha hitir. Why do you need all these? Why do you need all these cases? Sricha, you do need all of them. Yitana Moder Rabbi Yeshua, the Mishnah on Ted Vav, right? And the first Mishnah in the second parak, Moder Rabbi Yeshua, Mishemdika Jar Lamona. Yeshua says that a person says it was your father's field, but I bought it from him, right? So he's Naman. Pesha Aser Pesha Hitir, Mishum the Ikar Jar Lamona, because he's currently the Muchzach. This person who's saying it belonged to your father, I bought it from him, he's currently living on the field. So we believe him because he is the Muchzach. He'd be losing out money if he wasn't correct. I'll aid him, the Ikar Jar Lamona, the case of Adim, the case on Yud Chet, on Daf Yud Ches, where we're talking about people say we were the Adim on his star, however we were Ktanim, or we were Anusim, or we were Psuli Eidos. The Lake of Jarman, they're not involved financially, they're just the Eidim over there, so we don't need to believe them. And if you say the opposite, the case on Yerches, the Alma, right? They're not no gay b'davar, but the case on Ted Vav, where he's testifying about something, a property that belongs to him, he's a no gay b'davar, maybe we wouldn't believe Pesha Atz or Pesha Emolo. Top of Dalam and Al. If you just said these 2 cases on Ted Vav and Yerches, that's more chumrah. We're going to talk about Mamzerim over there, right? If we potentially allow her to remarry and assume she was really Megureshes, right? Which says, Eishes Isha Yisi, I was a married woman, but my husband divorced me. Maybe I wouldn't be believed. So why the second case in that Mishnah on Daf Chav Beis, where she says, I was captured, but I wasn't violated by a goy. Lamali, why do you need that case? Because the Sefer of the Mishnah says that even though normally she's believed Pesha Asar, Pesha Hitir, if Adam already came to testify that she was taken captive, she no longer has a pesha asr pesha hit. That's the chiddush. Hanichal man the amber the masli la seifa makes sense according to what Machlokas, right? This seifa of the Mishnah, is it only going on the seifa or is it going on the reisha of the Mishnah? I mean, in the case of where she said Eish Zishani v'Gerishtani. Hanichal man the masli la seifa alman the masli la reisha already taught this chiddush even by the more chomer case by Eish Zish. Ma'ikal Meimar, of course, you don't need to teach that by the seifa. So my answer is no. The reason it taught is basically the Harni Mishum the Kabbalah missing Shtei Nashim Shnishbu v'Shtei Nash because it wants to teach the Mishnah on Chav Gimel where it talks about women that were taken captive, and we want to know if they're believed about themselves or believed about their fellow woman. V'Shtei Nashim Shnishbu Lamali. Why do you need that case? It seems pretty obvious. Mao the same on Neichus the Gomlim. There, when each one is testifying about their friend, right? They said I'm Tameya and she's Tahora, and each one is testifying about their friend. Maybe there's a collusion over there. There's a conspiracy. They're trying to help each other out. They know about themselves they wouldn't be believed, but they say about each other they'll be believed. So they each paid each other. They made an agreement that, well, let's say I'm Tameya, but my friend is Tahora, in order, or they'll say just about their friend is Tahora. If you say you're Tameya, then you make an agreement. She'll say you're Tahora, and I'll say that you're Tahora. So therefore, we'll work it out. We're not worried about it. Our Mishnah over here on Chag Gimel is about the Kohanim. Why do you need that Mishnah? Mishum the Kabbalah Mishnah plugs to the Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, and one say the Malchus Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan. The Rabbi Yehuda actually is cholik on the Rabbanan, needs 2 aid, and 1 aid is not good enough. Tan Rabbanan, Ani Kohen Chaverai Kohen Neman Lachila B'Truma Ino Neman Lastio Isha Ad Shiu Gimel. The Brisa says if you say I'm a Kohen and my friend is a Kohen, so like we said in the Mishnah, you're believed about your friend, about yourself you're not believed. We'll explain more in Yom Ben Sion. You're not believed about yourself according to everybody, but you are believed about your friend. You're only believed in order to Meichel Truma. All right, getting Truma is one of the benefits of being a Kohen, but you're not Neman Lahasio Isha. Now there's a Machlokas in the Rishon. What does it mean Lahasio Isha? We're going to stick with, I think, the preferred explanation is that we're not choshesh he's a mamzer. We don't know who this guy is. Maybe he's a mamzer. He can't marry even a Bas Yisrael. So therefore, we don't trust him. He might be a mamzer. A choshesh that he's still a mamzer and a sin, and he can't marry a Bas Yisrael. Ashiu Gimel, until there's 3 Shnayim Idim Al Zev, Shnayim Idim Al Zev. You need 2 people, each one to testify about the other person, and one of them can't be involved because he's an Ogei B'davar. So you need 2 independent Eidim. Rabbi Yehuda, he says even for Truma you need 3 dayan, 3 Eidim. Shnayim min al zev, Shnayim min al zev. So the Gemara says, "Name of the Rabbi Yehuda chayish l'gaon." Rabbi Yehuda, obviously, the reason he doesn't allow one person to testify about the other person is because he holds. The Gemara is assuming he's chayish l'gaon. He's choshesh that people are making a conspiracy, a collusion over here. They should each one say about the other one that he's a Kohen in order to matter both of them. Rabbanan lo chayish l'gaon. Rabbanan don't hold to that. We seem to find the opposite logic in a different Mishnah. This is not a Chamorin. This is a Mishnah in Demai. Chamorin, people that were driving donkeys, when they were driving donkeys, they obviously, were Mashiach. So we're talking about 2 people that were Mashiach. This Mishnah is talking about. They were driving, there were two men on donkeys. So this is the Machlokas, right? Which one do you believe was Mashiach or not? You have 2 people on donkeys. What's going to be? How are we going to have Mashiach? Imagine two people riding on donkeys. Imagine they're riding, I think the way of deciding is they're going to line them up in the Kentucky Derby against all the thoroughbreds. Thoroughbreds and the 2 Mashiachs on donkeys. The Mashiach on donkey that wins the Kentucky Derby will be the one that we believe. So, I'm joking, of course not. Of course, Mashiach doesn't ride on an actual donkey, does he? I think it's a mashal that he just rides on the chumrius. He's above the chumrius, the gashmi. It's not that he doesn't. He does partake in it. He's just above it. He's able to control himself. People on donkeys, they came into a city. We don't know who these people are. He says, the grain I'm holding is chadash. Now chadash is aser, right? Min Torah. Chadash, new things are aser min Torah. There's a famous story that I don't know, like Newman Hagim and Klal Yisrael. Someone said this. I think it was which gadol said this? It's been repeated by numerous gadolim. I think it was the Chasam Sofer said this. He said that Chadash Asr Min Torah, new things, are Asr Min Torah. maybe like even phones. I think you shouldn't, not just kosher phone, any phones. Chadash is a new thing. Also in the Torah, they asked him. I don't know what the context was. They were asking about a new thing. Anything's new. That's why people started wearing black hats, because 1920s, people were wearing black hats. They were wearing brown hats, whatever. They were wearing hats. Dignified people wore hats. Chadash also take off your hat. Shali Chadash. Let's talk about grain. Chadash. That right. It was grown this year, and the Omer didn't come yet. Ted Zion, Benisan didn't come yet. Chavera Yashan. My friend is holding grain, which is Yashan, which is mutter to eat. Shali ani ena masuka. My grain wasn't taking up Shuvas and Ma'is. So Shachavera Masuka, my friend, his was taking up Shuvas and Ma'is. I don't Neman. The Rabbanan hold he's not Neman, and both people are testing at each other, saying theirs is kosher, but mine's not. He's not Neman because we're Choshish Lagom. Yehuda Omer Neman. Yehuda says we believe each other. We're not Choshish that they made a conspiracy. Amar Rav Barava, Amar Rav Muchleves Hashita. So you're right. We have to switch it around, right? Presumably we'll switch around the Brisa, right, to conform with the Mishnah. The Mishnah Chamarin. Right, we'll assume that the Rabbanan are the one that are Chayish L'Gomen, are Chayish L'Gomen. Or who does not Chayish L'Gomen? Amar Abayi Amar Olam Al Seibach. Really, you don't have to switch around. But Demai Kilu, when it comes to this Mishnah of Chamar, and we're talking about grain, which is a suffix, we don't know it's Demai. It's one of the Mishnayos in Mesechus Demai. Demai means Demai. We don't know what it is. Is it Truma, where Truma is taken off or not? But Demai, it's only a Chash Rabbanan Kilu. Rova Ma'aretz Ma'ishin Hen Midal Rais. So we assume. Even Amaratzim take off Shumas and Maestro, so therefore we could assume that it's okay. We go subject to Rabbanan Lakula, and we can go Lakula over here, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda's Mekel over here. Even though normally he's Chayish Lagom, here he's not. Amarabba, the Rabbi Yehuda Lakasha, the Rabbanan Lakash. If you answer Rabbi Yehuda, but the Rabbanan you have an answer. The Rabbanan are more Machmer by Demai. El the Rabbi Yehuda Lakasha, Kidishanina, right? Rabbi Yehuda is not a Kasha. Demai Kilu, the Rabbanan Lakasha. Never be Chama Barukwa B'Shklium Nasu Biyado. The case in the case of the Chamarin that coming to the city with their grain, he's holding a sign. He's saying for sale. He's saying for sale. He has his company's logo written on his shirt. So he's clearly invested in his business over. He's a businessman. So he's more likely that he's tricking us over here. So therefore, the Rabbanan, even though they're normally not Chayish L'Gomen, here they are Chayish L'Gomen. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about where he has a sign for sale. He's a, astute businessman. Businessmen are a little trickier. They want to make sales, The real businessmen, they know all the tricks. Chav Dalam and Beis, Hachanam B'Shklium Nasu B'Yado. Here also, we're talking about B'Shklium Nasu B'Yado. This answer was not said. We'll see where it was said, but somewhere else. So he's applying this to the Chamarin also, where they had a business sign where they said for sale. The Gemara says, where did the Chacham Baruch would say this about Kliyum Nasu B'Yado? Hadisnan Hakedar, where this is a Mishnah in Taros. Hakedar Sheniach Terosav V'Yara Lishtos Mayim in a Yor. Went to the Nile River, right? He was in Egypt. I don't know. He's making pots. Right? And he has selling pots. He's selling pots. I bought a new set of Tefal pots when my daughter was born. It's still in their box. I'm waiting Chef Bensi to start taking them out. I separated them for dairy because, there's dairy and meat. You don't need to really cook meat. You just grill it. Good meat does not need salt or pepper or anything. You just eat it medium rare, right? And it's great. You don't have to do so much work. But dairy, that's why, dairy, you got to help out a lot. You got to really cook. Dairy is the time when you got to use your pots and pans and skillets and frying pans. You got to use those things. So I have a whole set of Tefal. Tefal, I believe, is one of the best. Definitely non-stick. Tefal stands for, if you didn't know, it stands for Teflon. Teflon is non-stick material. They made aluminum. They're made out of aluminum. Aluminum is lighter than iron. So like cast iron skillet. These are made out of aluminum, and they're Teflon. That's where you get Tefal. It's a French company, maybe best company of dishware in the world. If you're American, you probably, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are the best. America has its own brand, Cuisinart, KitchenAid, things like that. So he's making pots and pans. He's selling them. He yard lishtos. He went to get some water. He went down to the Makola and he got some bottle of water and went to the Yor. I don't know. Apnimios Tahoros. He leaves his pots and pans on the side of the river. So the ones that are not next to Hapnimio, we'll see where they're next to. They're inside, meaning they're protected. They're towards Vachitzonios, the ones that are on the outside, Tameos. We assume they were touched by someone Tamei. Vatanya, Bryce says Elu Tameos. Both the inside ones and the outside ones are Tamei. If he's putting a sign for sale, right? Everyone's checking them out. Is this a tifal, authentic tifal, not authentic tifal? They're checking it out. So therefore, since they're checking it out, we assume everyone touches it. Amaratzim are assumed to be tamei. Vatanya, a different price is Elu Toros. Both of them, whether they're inside or outside the Torah. That's talking about where you didn't put a sign for sale. No one touches it. You don't just take people's spots. That Mishnah in Maseches Taros, what is it talking about? It's obviously talking about where it's now. It doesn't say a sign for sale. However, it's next to Rosh Hashanah. So the Pnimios and the ones on the inner ones, meaning they're close to Rosh Hashanah, those are touched by the people of Rosh Hashanah. The outer ones, which are farther away from Rosh Hashanah, the main road, the main thoroughfare, they're not going to be touched by passerby, and therefore we don't assume they're tamei. Another alternative answer to answer the Sira between Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan, Malim, Truma, Yuchsin, Kamifli. The Machlokas, Yehuda, and the Rabbanan about Kohanim, right, is, right, we're getting back to the Machlokas, right? Rabbi Yehuda seems to be Chayish L'gom, the Rabbanan not Chayish L'gom. It's Malim, Truma, Yuchsin, Kamifli, right? The reason Rabbi Yehuda is Machmir, he's Chayish L'gom, is because he holds that if we see Kohanim eating Truma, then we can assume that they're miyuchas, that they don't have a problem with their lineage, they're not mamzer, and they're not nesinim. And we're going to see Yuchsin is much more severe than eating Truma. Truma is just sort of a head there. Yuchsin is kashrus, right? Kedushas Kohen, Kedushas Yisrael. So therefore, it's more severe. How the Rabbanan hold, we're not worried about that. We don't. If we see somebody eating Truma, the protocol is that we don't assume they're Kohanim in order to consider not a mamzer and not a sin. So therefore, there's nothing to worry about. So therefore, we don't have to be chayish l'gom. It's not as severe. So let's say it says on a loan document that's a Kohen. He signs his name as a Kohen. Can we assume from the fact that he signs his name as a Kohen on a star that we could assume he's a Kohen for Yuchsin also? Hechidami, what's the case? He's saying, I'm a Kohen, I'm an aid. Man kamasidi love it. Right? He's just the aid who's testifying that he's a valid Kohen. No, he's one of the Bali Dinim. He's the borrower. He says, he signs in the star, I, Ploni Kohen, he signs his name, right? That's the way people sign it, or Apam HaKohen, right? They sign their name HaKohen. That's the way people sign these days. He wrote that he's a Kohen, so therefore I borrowed money from Ploni. Because Musadi, Adam testified. Right? So you see they probably testified on the fact that he's a Kohen also. Do we assume the Edom that signed the shar, they're only testifying that there was an actual loan? Not only are they testifying about the loan, they're also testifying on the fact that he's a Kohen. So it's a machlokas la'alacha. Ravuna says, we don't know which one says which one. One says that you can imala. If you see he's recorded in a shtar, he says, I borrowed money as a Kohen from this person, so we could assume, meaning the Eidim are not just testifying about the loan, they're also testifying of the validity of him being a Kohen, and therefore we could be Ma'ale Mishtaros Liyos. The other one says no, they're only testifying on Manesh Rashar. This is how we hold. You're only testifying legally Midoraisa about what's in the loan, not about the Eidim, so therefore, not about the fact that he's a Kohen, so therefore we can't rely on that to assume he's a Kohen and to be Ma'ale Mishtaros Liyos. Let's say we see someone on the Dukhan, he gets up in front of the shul, and it's certainly Dukhan every day, and we see him take his socks, take his shoes off, and he runs up to the bima, and he shouts it out, he blasts it out, Yerech Hashem Yishmerecha, he's louder than all the other Kohanim, he takes a microphone and he starts singing, Yerech Yishmer. He makes a song out of it, you know, Joey Newcomb is going to come out with a song for Birkas Kohanim. Imagine that. We need a song for Birkas Kohanim. I think the tune is a little antiquated. I think they need a tune for that. You know, some Jewish singer's got to come up with it. If no one else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. Because one day I'll be a Jewish singer also. Hopefully that's one of my aspirations. So, yeah, you heard it here first. So, yeah, he's belting out Birkas Kohanim. Do we assume that he's a Kohen in order to be Malin Liyuchsen? To assume that he's considered a kosher Kohen, a kosher Yisrael? He's not a mamzer in the sin. So the Gemara says, right? You could ask this question according to the one who holds Ramal Mishrum Aliyoseh, right? Which he says is Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. And according to Rabban, Emalin, Tibal Mana Ramalin, Hani Mili Truma. Truma, right, Ramalin, the Avan Misahi. It must be he's a Kohen because Yechai Misi Shemayim, if you're really a Zar, Yisrael, you need Truma. Avan Liskidapam, this is our essay, right? It just says Kosev Archles B'nai Yisrael. Right? The Kohanim should bless Yisrael. So we can infer from that if you're a Zar, you shouldn't bless Yisrael. It's only this or essay. It's not so severe, so therefore Kohanim people would fake being a Kohen, so therefore you can be Malo. Dilma, Lo Shnars. But we say no, the Nisr essay also is severe, and therefore you'll be able to Malo. By the way, Ein Malin. You could also ask this question according to the one who says Ein Malin. How do you merely Truma, the Misachla Besina? Truma, people could fake it out because you eat Truma in private. I'm going to say for Hesia, he left Kohen, he's not going to be so brazen to go ahead and do Nesilas Kapayim. People will say, who is this guy? He's not a Kohen. So, obviously, the fact that he's went up to Duchen, it shows that he's a Kohen. Al Dilma Lo Shnar, maybe we would say there's no difference. Rav Chisda, Rabbi Avina, what's up, Sakala? Haramar Malin. One says you do say, if you see him Duchening, you could assume he's Kasher Liyosef. V'charamar Ein Malin, and we paskin Ein Malin, just like we paskin like Shtoros. Amalei Rav Nachman, Yisrael Rava, Malu Ahalos Menesilas Kapayim Liyuchsin. He asked him, I guess the halacha wasn't settled at that point. What's the halacha? Amalei Plugster of Chisda Ravina, Hilchasamai. What's the halacha? Amalei Anamas Tisa Yadana, I know a Bryce, the sign of Yossi Omer Gdola Chazaka. We could see the power of Chazaka, of a status quo. What's the power? Shemar Amnei Kohanim, there's a pasuk in Ezra when they came back to build the Bayis Sheni from Bavel. Amnei Kohanim, Bnei Chivya, Bnei Akotz, Bnei Marzilai, Shalakach Mels Barzilai, Hagiladi Isha. These families it took from the daughters of Barzilai Hagiladi, a woman, by Ikra Shmam, and it was called on their name. Elu Bikshuk Sava Masachsim. They wanted to find documents proving they were Kohanim. Below Nimsu, by Yigolim and Akuna, they were distant. They were pushed away from the Kahuna. Al Yomer Hatar Shasa Alahem, Ashel Yochlum Kodesh HaKodshim, Adamon Behen Kohen L'Urim Metumim. He said these people, they can't prove they're Kohanim. They're not allowed to eat Kodshim, meaning what? Meaning Karbanos. Amar Lahem, Areatem B'Cheskasem. Ma'isem Ochlim. What did he basically say to them? You're considered with your Chazaka. Ma'isem Ochlim Agola. What were you allowed to eat in Gola? In the Gola. There's no Karbanos in the Golas in Bavel. B'Kodshei Agvul. In Truma, basically. Afkan B'Kodshei Agvul. Obviously, there was no Truma D'Oraisa in Bavel, but Truma D'Rabbanan, Truma technically only applies to Eretz Yisrael. It's Mitzvah T'Liva Aretz, but there is a concept of Truma D'Rabbanan in some places. So they ate that over there, so you can eat also in Eretz Yisrael. But you can, so the Chazaka works, they can eat Truma, even though they have no proof they're Kohanim. We can rely on the fact that they're testifying, 1-8 is testifying that he's a Kohen in order to eat Truma, but not to eat Kodshim. If you hold that technically if you see someone doing Duchenin, you can assume he's Miyuchas, Hani came on the Parsi Adai, Asilas Akinu, right? Technically we assume just like they're eating Truma, they're allowed to Duchen. So obviously you see, you're not Mala, Miduchen, Nisias Kachayim Liyuchsin. Whereas the Shani Haka, the Reyach has Kayu. It's not a strong Chazaka, it's a weak Chazaka. According to the one who holds, Rabbi Yehuda who holds that you could be Mal with Truma Liyuchsin. So the fact that we rely on the Chazaka, adding with Truma, so they're going to push them up to Yuchsin. Elam Mishum the Reyach has Kayu must be, even though they had a Chazaka over here, he said they have a Chazaka, it was a weak Chazaka. So therefore they wouldn't, even normally you would be Mal with Truma Liyuchsin or Netiz Kapayim, here you wouldn't. So the top of Halaf Menachav Hem and Aleph says, Elamai Gedola Chazaka. What is he saying on the strength of Chazaka? We see it was a weak Chazaka over here. Meikara, Echa V'Shuma, the Rabbanan Hashda, Echa V'Shuma, the Rice. Right? Even though we can't be Malam, Truma, or Miducha, and Liyuchsin, he says Kapayim Liyuchsin, but if in Bavel all they're eating is Truma, the Rabbanan, we can rely on the Chazaka to allow them to eat Truma, the Rice in Eretz Yisrael, because technically they would have been allowed to eat Truma, the Rice in Bavel. So therefore, there was no Truma, the Rice. So therefore, come to Eretz Yisrael, there's no Truma, the Rice, Mitzvah T'Liva Aretz. So therefore they're allowed to eat Truma D'Oraisa. We'll stop here. This is a good ending point. I hope you enjoyed today's share. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where we'll talk more about the believability, the ne'emanos of a Kohen for himself and for somebody else, Eid Echad, And the seeming difficulty to be malda for yuchsin, and kudshim are very severe. Why are they more severe? We'll explain that coming up. Nima Ben Sion right now. See my finger? 1 second. My finger pressing the off button.